I'm still Jackie Hall, adding some final thoughts to the lengthy talk I gave 2 days ago. First, when I listed my many lives, one of the things I said was my life as a monastic, and somebody questioned me about that, so I just want to clarify. I didn't mean to imply that I was ever ordained. I was just a lay person attending abbeys and monasteries and living a monastic life. Also, when I talked about sweatshirt messages, and I said my sweatshirt message today is travel to serve, when I was younger, my message would have been, leave me alone, I'll do it myself. So, this is some of you know that one. It's kind of fun to think about your sweatshirt messages. So I left you when I was still in Myanmar and getting kicked out because immigration said I had to go because I'd overstayed my visa. So 3 or 4 months after that, I stayed in a couple of other spiritual places, but I found myself doing a day visit at Amrita Puri Ashram in Kerala in South India. It's right on the equator. And this is an ashram that is, it belongs to Amma. Some of you might have heard of her. She's known all over the world as the hugging saint. Quite an incredible woman. Several people along my journey had suggested that they knew what I was looking for, a meditation support place, and I wanted to learn about Advaita Vedanta, was interested in that, and suggested that I go into one of Amma's abbeys or monasteries. And I'm like, no. I met her once in Santa Fe, and I wasn't attracted to her as a teacher, but what I was attracted to was, oh my goodness, she does so much service work all over the world, so I really appreciate anybody that's doing humanitarian work. Anyway, so I knew about her, and I was at a place not too far from her ashram, and I went just for the day to visit. And when I got there, I did a tour, and I noticed a little poster on their bulletin board that said that they were having a 5-day silent retreat, which was starting in less than a week. So I immediately went to the office and signed up for it, and that retreat led to another, and then I think it was during my either second or third silent retreat there that the lockdown happened in India. And so this, some people have asked about what the ashram was like, and an ashram is not like a monastery, it's very different, and this one is huge. This is her home when she's not on tour, and thousands and thousands of people come. So I don't know how many people actually live there all the time, certainly several thousand. More than 1,500 foreigners were living there when I got there. Many of them actually, they say, own their own rooms, sort of. If they're not in residence, then the rooms are rented to or given to other people that come to visit. Anyway, there's a little hospital. They have an Ayurvedic clinic, and Ayurvedic medicine is available. They have a general store, fruit and vegetable stands, a fabulous small library. Before COVID, they had massage therapists, a lovely garden with an elephant, a lot of chanting, and daily teachings on the Bhagavad Gita and other texts, and of course, service. I need to cut. So more than 1.5 years later, India opened their international flights, and so they gave us 30 days to leave, so everybody had to quick scurry and make arrangements. And I didn't want to come back to the United States. I actually thought maybe I would plan to go to Sri Lanka because it's close, but travel was just a real challenge, so many restrictions and requirements. So the easiest thing to do was to just come back to the US. Venerable Children mentioned, I think last night, about the karmic connection with your teacher from the past. And Amma had alluded to that at one time too. And a lot of her worldly travels, which she spends most of her time doing, is collecting her disciples. They recognize her when they see her. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. I just love that when, and I know many people that have this instant connection with their teacher, and I have never had that experience, but I maybe sometime, maybe next lifetime. And a lot of Eastern teachers, too, I think since the 70s, have done that, coming to the West and finding their students probably from other lifetimes. Amma only had a 4th grade education, but she has the wherewithal and an amazing labor force to be reckoned with. And hers is a life of service, and I can tell you all kinds of stories about the things that she does. Right now, this month, I believe, they are opening a hospital in New Delhi, which will be the largest hospital in all of India. And it's all done with donations and it's just, and volunteers. It's incredible. So I can name lots of other people like this that I've met in my travels, but I'm not going to, because I know you want to get to lunch sometime today. One, I remember Sister Priscilla that I met in South Africa. She left her Benedictine community. She was a nurse. She left her Benedictine community to convert an abandoned stable, a horse stable, I believe it was, into a safe place for people that she found dying of AIDS in the sugarcane fields. And of course, this has grown into something else, and I can name 10 different ones just like that, about not that different than Venerable Children. She came up here and she's living practically like a hermit, I suppose, with the bare minimum, and look at what you have today. So these things happen, and it doesn't take long, over just a period of maybe a decade or two. And it's all service, and it's so beautiful. Venerable Sankey said to me after I talked the other day, she said, "You're living the life you're supposed to be living." And I totally believe that. Before I started this new journey in 2003, I was dying a slow death in that life that I was living. It had come to an end, and something had to give. So other than my years of hospice experience, I really didn't have any special skills to offer, only my willingness. But sometimes the most important thing one can do is nothing. For example, there were times when it seemed that my primary reason for being in a place was just to be a sounding board for the person in charge. The person in charge often doesn't have anybody to go to, and often can feel very alone. Some of them have a community, but the community doesn't support what they're doing. Some of them have left their communities to do the work that they're called to do. And I just found myself in that position more than once, of just being somebody that could sit and listen and let them talk about what was happening for them and their frustrations. Venerable St. Paul asked how I had changed as a result of this. And I thought, that's such a subjective question, and I'm like, how do you know how you've changed? I'd have to observe myself actually in an incident and say, oh, I used to be different. I used to respond differently. So I thought about that. My flexibility, I'm sure I'm much more flexible than I was. My husband used to describe me as ready, fire, aim. So I hope today I spend a little more time aiming. And that comes with patience, and patience has kind of been my lifelong challenge. And I received many lessons there because I was often stuck in situations where it was a holding pattern. It was clear to me that my work where I would be finished. It was time to move on, but where to go? And there was nothing I would do my legwork, of course, but for the most part, it involved just letting the world unfold and see what happened. And those experiences were often came in very unusual ways and always led to things that I would never have dreamed of or been able to plan for. So that's my favorite part of the whole thing. It's the mystery of it. You just don't know. And so not to have any expectations, but just to go with the flow. I love the surprises. And I think about equanimity, too. I think I notice myself being more calm in difficult situations. I heard on the news a while ago that if you travel this year, you can be sure of one thing. You will have flight delays, cancellations, or lost luggage. And I had all three of those in July. And I was traveling with a friend who had a very large bag, and fortunately, her bag was recovered almost immediately. We were able to pick it up at our next destination. But mine, which was just a small carry-on bag, didn't show up until it was 2 months. I picked it up. I had to drive 500 miles to pick it up just a couple of days before I left to come up here. But I got it back. But you know, it's just stuff, and I don't have very much stuff. So it was not even, I can't remember any part of me ever being upset about it. It was just like, oh, well, whatever. No big deal. But here's one that I just want to share with you. For many years, the first many years that I was traveling, the feedback that I got from people was, "You're so brave." That was a word that was just used over and over with me. Brave? How can you be so brave? Aren't you afraid? And I think it might have been around 2012 that changed, and I became aware that people were describing me as kind. And that surprised me. I don't know that I was any different, but people were seeing me different. And I'll take kind any day over brave. So that may be the best. I don't know how I've changed, but something changes, and I don't know that we're even ever aware. Over the years, I've come back to the existential question: who am I? Why am I here? You know, what's my purpose? And I think about how much more effective I could be if I had some special skills like nursing or teaching or technology. But what I've come to accept and believe is okay is that I've been sent out there just to be a witness. Everywhere I've gone, there are wonderful people doing wonderful things to help others. So I want to assure you, in spite of all the news and stuff that we read, bodhicitta is alive and well. And the Dalai Lama affirmed your Sangha's morning prayer the other night when he said, when we wake up in the morning, we should think about helping others. And so I go home motivated, and I thank you all so much for your kindness.